Fallout 4 has a huge variety of melee weapons, and although I have not been the nicest about melee combat in Fallout 4 in recent memory, it can be a viable strategy if the player knows what they're doing. Sledgehammers, rocket fists, and deathclaw hands can be utilized if the player is light on their feet and has the right perks. However, what if I wasn't light on my feet? What if I had a bum leg the entire game, and still had to only attack with one of the weakest melee weapons in the game? Come to think of it, Fallout 4 has a lot of scientists in it, and scientists are close to doctors, kind of, and that kind of reminds me of another show, I guess. Yeah, I think I'm kind of reaching for that analogy, but you get the idea. Challenge accepted. Welcome back to Challenge Chronicles. Today's episode, Fallout 4 as Dr. House. Hello. Sorry to stop the video. It's me. I've got a new mic stand. Anyway, so I'm here to make an announcement. I am going to be streaming on Twitch very soon. Very soon as in like basically when this video goes up. I'm going to be streaming Challenge Chronicles stuff. So like you can actually watch me do the playthroughs. So that's going to be cool. And I'm also going to be streaming Dead by Daylight, you know, because I'm in a huge Dead by Daylight phase. I just need to stream it, you know. And it's just a chill time. I'm just doing like more relaxed, laid back content on there. So if that sounds fun to you, head on over to Twitch. My name is MillyBilly88 on there because some guy took $1 million bill from me. I will find them. But yeah, if that sounds fun to you, head on over to Twitch. Anyway, so let's get back to the video. Let's get back to beating Fallout 4 as Dr. House. Goodbye. So a lot of you may be wondering, what does that even mean? Well, allow me to tell you everything in an arrogant and demeaning lecture. Dr. House has a crippled leg, and he gets around with a walking cane. And there is a walking cane weapon in Fallout 4, which is where I got the idea for this run. The idea is simple. I'm only allowed to damage enemies with a walking cane, and my left leg is permanently crippled. Don't ask why I chose my left leg specifically, because I don't know. But Will, I hear you screaming. Crippled limb states are not permanent in Fallout 4. They automatically heal. I hear you, loyal watcher, I hear you. I spent a while trying to figure out how I would even make this run happen. There is a console command to cripple your leg, but it will automatically heal after a short time. However, I found this mod, which makes it so that crippled limb states are permanent, like in the previous games. So the prelude to this game was just me loading up Fallout 4 at level 1 playthrough, and going to a remote location to fiddle with this mod. It certainly does make crippled limbs permanent, that's for sure. My concern was though, if my other limbs got crippled, I would have to use a stim pack and my leg would heal. But turns out if I use a console command to break my leg and stim pack, then my leg won't heal because it's glitched as broken. Yippee, this is exactly what I wanted. So I loaded up a new game and made my character. I tried to make him look as much like Dr. House as possible. I think I did a pretty good job. Oh, whoops, sorry. I meant J-O-B. Phew, that was close. Can't have slurs on YouTube. Anyway, I was sick and tired of doing this intro, so I literally just got up and made myself a coffee while I waited for the Vault-Tec man to come to my door. With my special, I decided to go high strength for obvious reasons, high endurance so I could get as many health points and action points as I can muster, and the rest into luck so I can get the Idiot Savant perk. Once the Vault-Tec man was dealt with, I proceeded with running to the vault. I tried to get a traffic cone to come with me to the vault, but the cone unfortunately fell into a ravine and died. Absolutely devastated, I soldiered on to the vault. I did a sweet 360 no-scope onto the platform, and then, oh god, oh fuck, oh, it scared me, oh god, this scared me, fuck, oh my god, it scared me, oh, I missed it, damn. Down in the vault, I led the vault doctor to the cryo chamber. No, you first, I insist. I eventually gave up arguing with the fuck-ass vault doctor, and got into the cryo chamber. You guys know the drill at this point. Murder, theft, bullying, mild trauma. This has all happened many times before. After I escaped the pod, I took on the task of crippling my limb. But before I get to that, I have to get something out of the way. It has come to my attention that many of you that view these videos aren't subscribed to my channel. So I'd like to say this. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. It's 100% free, and it is kind of content all the time. Anyway, let's get back with the video. I used a console command to set the health of my left leg to minus 100, so it is now permanently crippled. And now we just progress to, oh my god, I am so slow. with a leg crippled. Jesus fucking Christ, I've never seen anyone limp so slowly. My very first problem throughout the intro is the rad roaches. Normally I'll just run past them, but I can't run. The premise of this run is that I have no legs and I must run. However, when you have a melee weapon out, you can do this attack in third person that kind of lunges you forward, so at least I have a way of getting a tiny bit faster. I managed to get past the roaches and lock them behind the doors. I crouched until I was hidden and then I grabbed my Pip-Boy and hardtailed it out of there. Whoa, why is it so far away? Why is it so far away? I then did a very lengthy limp towards Sanctuary to talk to Codsworth. I helped him kill the bugs by not helping at all, and then he told me to go off to Concord. I did not do that. It's time for me to get my weapon for this run. The last time I saw a walking cane for sale in this game, it was all the way down in Diamond City. So, time for an adventure. I limped my way across the wasteland for hours, or what seemed like hours at least. I ran away from some blood bugs, died to some blood bugs once, almost got spotted by a Mr. Gutsy, that would have been devastating. My game crashed, for fuck's sake. And then I died a couple times to the super mutants just outside the city. I eventually got there though, and I was forced against my will to help Piper get into Diamond City.
Are you being intentionally dense?
Huh? I ran, or sort of ran, straight past everyone, and then got into the city and looked through the vendors. I found my walking cane, and I can finally attack things. Yay! Now it's time to head back to Concord to help the Minutemen. I was kind of worried about taking on a Deathclaw with a bum leg and only a walking cane, as fighting it with a rolling pin turned out to be not very fun. However, I had a trick up my sleeve.
It's not lupus.
So I went inside the Museum of Freedom and killed all the raiders in my path. I spent way too long trying to hack this fuck-ass door, and I got the fusion core to save some time. I then limped my way through the raiders and died a good few times before I finally bested them. I went to Preston and he told me to get onto the roof in some power armor and kill the rest of the raiders. So I limped up there and put on the power armor. It was here that I learned something life-changing. Oh my god, the power armor alleviates crippled limbs. Oh my god, how did I not think of this? So I can walk normally while in power armor, which means I am now stuck in this power armor for the rest of the game. I got down and ran straight to the Deathclaw and then ran to the room it can't go into. I watched it lay waste to the rest of the raiders and I distracted it while Preston slowly fired at it with his musket. Like, very slowly. Eventually, after I passed away from old age, the Deathclaw bit the dust. I met the Minutemen inside and they told me to go to Diamond City. Little do they know, I already have. I then went back to Sanctuary and scrapped a bunch of trees to turn into fence posts in order to grab my levels up a little. The Idiot Savant perk is a must-have if you're trying to level up fast. It's even more effective than just having 10 out of 10 intelligence. Then, since power armor allows me to walk normally, I am now on the hunt for fusion cores. I pulled up an IGN guide and gathered enough to at least get me to a point where I can afford more. Now I guess it's time to take on Park Street Station. I got a teeny weeny bit lost on the way to Park Street Station, but I found it in the end. I barged in there with my walking cane and didn't have too much trouble king hitting the triggermen down there. My main problem down there is my withering power armor. My last few pieces of intact power armor broke while down there, so I'm now just walking around in a power armor frame. That's fine, I just needed to be able to walk. I pummeled the rest of the triggermen without much problems, and I entered Vault 114. Dino wasn't much of a challenge, and then I saved... Bobblehead, my beloved. Oh yeah, I also saved Nick Valentine, I guess. He told me to follow him, but I didn't do that. I sped through this section so fast, I'm shocked I didn't break the sound barrier. I went up to Skinny Malone and just wailed on him with my walking cane. I met Valentine back in Diamond City and told him about Kellogg. I sweet-talked the maid's assistant into giving me the house key, and then I ransacked Kellogg's house. I showed Dogmeat the scent of the cigars, but then I completely ignored him and ran over to Fort Hagen. I waited for Dogmeat to get to the fort, and I tried to dismiss him, but for some reason he was all glitched and I couldn't interact with him. Stupid fucking game. Don't worry, I was able to dismiss him eventually. I dealt with the synths inside and didn't have too many problems with them. I managed to score another fusion core, and I made it to the Kellogg fight. For a change, I thought this would be easy, but it ended up being more difficult than I thought. I had to deal with the synths first, which took a while, but then once they were dealt with, Kellogg bit the dust very soon after. I ravaged his corpse, exited the building, and watched the Brotherhood arrive in the Commonwealth. I'm sure you guys have probably already guessed, but since I need power armor to move or do anything, I'm obviously going with the Brotherhood ending in this run. I took the Kellogg brain thing to Nick and he was having a conversation with an extremely tall rat or something. He told me to go to the memory den, so I sprinted off to Good Neighbor. I ran straight past the dude at the entrance, I went down into the memory den, talked to Dr. Amari, and I had to ditch my power armor to go into the Matrix. And oh my god, no. No, I'm still crippled in the memory world. Oh my fucking god, why? So after about a millennia or so passes, I finally get to the end of the memory segment and learn that the Institute people teleport or something. Finally free from the memory prison, I talked to Dr. Amari and she told me to go see Virgil in the glowing sea. So I took my power armor and sprinted across the radiated wasteland. And to those of you that are saying, no, you can't use power armor, you're not crippled, that's cheating. If you thought I was going to slowly limp my way across the glowing sea, seek mental assistance.
We have a patient with the plague.
I made it to Adam's butthole or whatever, and the pet scorpions there injected their venom deep into my bloodstream. I went to Virgil's cave, and he told me to kill a Corsa with my walking cane. I ran to Green Tech and sped through the gunners there. They proved to be dealing a little bit of damage, but nothing some Jet and Psycho can't handle.
You dosed me!
Yes, I did.
I died to the missile launcher guy a couple of times, but I eventually chugged Jet and turned his face into a cutting board. I ran up through Green Tech and reached the Corsa. I used Psycho and Jet again and bashed him over and over again. This fight wasn't hard per se, just time consuming. I got the Corsa brain, killed the rest of the gunners, freed the synth girl, and then I dipped. I took the chip to Dr. Amari, and she told me to go find the railroad because she's useless and does no dick about squat. I sprinted to Old North Church and convinced the railroad to let me in. I got the Corsa chip analyzed and then brought the plans to Virgil. He gave me some crayon drawings and told me to bring them to someone with big brain. So I went to Cambridge Police Station to help Paladin Dance and his merry men and women. I actually helped in killing some of the ghouls, and then Dance asked me why I'm here. I asked if I could join the Brotherhood, and he told me to follow him to ArcJet Systems to get a transmitter or something. I don't know, I wasn't listening. I was watching a stream while I was playing this. I sped through ArcJet and bashed the synths in my path. By now I have a couple points in the Big Leagues perk which allows me to disarm people with a hit of my walking cane. But this is a bad thing because they drop their weapons and they start throwing fisticuffs, which means they can fucking block my attacks, which is so frustrating. I eventually got through the synths in ArcJet and then I blasted Dance with some rocket engines. I'm sure he doesn't mind. I got the transmitter and then Dance gave me a worthless pile of garbage. Now, some of you said in the comments of my rolling pin video that Righteous Authority is actually a pretty good weapon. Now, when I say it's garbage, I don't mean it's actually conventionally garbage in all contexts. I mean that in a playthrough where I can only use a walking cane, that's not a fucking walking cane, so it's useless to me. After I dealt with ArcJet, I was high enough level to go get the local leader perk rank 2. Which, you know what that means. I went to Sanctuary and spent about 15 minutes grinding up my caps so I could go to Diamond City and get a stupid amount of fusion cores. The rest of this run is going to be a piece of cake. And for those of you still saying that this is cheating, have this. There you go. I went back to Cambridge Police Station and went on to the Vertibird. I had to ditch my power armor in order to get up to the Pridwin, and my game crashed a couple of times, but that's fine. I got there in the end. Got my new Brotherhood power armor. I met all the members of the Brotherhood, and I was tasked with taking out Fort Strong. This is what I was afraid of. If taking out a Deathclaw with a bum leg and a melee weapon was violent sodomy, then Fort Strong was violent sodomy but without lube, and the bed is made of sandpaper. Once I took out the other super mutants, it was time to lay into the super mutant behemoth. I found out that I could block some of its attacks, and that gave me the upper hand in the fight. I got low a few times, but Behemoth eventually fell before me. I took out the rest of the super mutants inside, and I talked to Dance. He told me about how proud he is of me, and told me to report to Elder Maxon. Now that Fort Strong is dealt with, I talked to Elder Maxon about the teleporter plans. Then I passed it on to Ingram. She told me to build the teleporter with a biometric scanner and military grade circuit board, which I already got earlier for this mission. I built the teleporter, and Ingram gave me a network scanner to use inside the Institute. Maxon also told me to find Dr. Lee once inside the Institute because she would help build a new project. I agreed, and then I was teleported inside the Institute. Once again, I used the network scanner to gather some info. Then I met Father, who is my son, I guess. Turns out I was on ice in the vault for a lot longer than I thought. I agreed to help him, I will never speak to him again, and then I met the directors, skimmed through the dialogue, and then met Dr. Lee. I saved Scum to the persuasion checks until I passed and convinced her to come back to the Brotherhood. I left the Institute and reported back to the Brotherhood. Ingram, now teaming up with Dr. Lee, asked me to help her with the project of remaking Liberty Prime by donating to her Patreon. Just kidding, that would be way too easy. I actually have to go into a super mutant infested hospital to retrieve a high-powered magnet. Once I retrieved the magnet, I made the Beyblades or whatever they are, and I was tasked with talking to Scribe Halen. So I grabbed my Brotherhood of Steel power armor that was supplied to me, and then I made it to Scribe Halen. For some reason, she was just stuck in an animation because there were some super mutants nearby. I killed them, saw a man disappear before my very eyes, and then she was still broken because there were some gunners nearby. So I dealt with those peeps, took on a Soltron which took up more resources than what I was comfortable with, and then she was finally able to talk to me. She told me to go into the glowing sea to find some bombs. I sprinted through the glowing sea, avoiding some scorpions and a deathclaw, and then I made it to the Sentinel site. I fought through the ghouls there, making use of the rooted perk I acquired recently, and then I made it to the door of the warehouse. I convinced the child of Adam that I'm here to spread Adam's creamy praise, and he let me in. I put the transmitter on the bombs, and then I left. I spent a good while whacking this legendary glowing one with my cane, and I headed back to the airport. Once I was covered in Ingram's praise for a job well done, I added some super cool sick flames onto my power armor, and then I talked to Maxon. He told me that Dance is actually a synth, and took off to hide from the Brotherhood. My job is to find him and eliminate him. Scribe Halen told me to at least hear him out before I executed him, so I agreed. I got to Dance, destroyed his defenses, and then he told me to just execute him. I tried to pass the skill check to get him to want to live, but I eventually got bored of save scumming for what I really didn't care for in the first place, so I spanked him with my cane. I stole all of his stuff and went back to the Pridwin. Now, after I stole the rest of Dance's stuff from his quarters, it was time to kill the railroad. I went to Old North Church and laid waste to the railroad goons. I went inside and I stood there, taking hit after hit from Glory, and I knocked her minigun out of her hand. I savored every last kill. I left Desdemona for last, and then I slowly bashed her brains into soup. I went back to the Pridwin, and now it's time for mass fusion. I went on a vertibird and did not fire a single bullet, and waited until the vertibird crashed. I dealt with the synths, grabbed the password, and stood there in the elevator while sipping my coffee. I got down into the beryllium agitator room, and this time I have power armor, so the rads aren't a problem. What is a problem, however, is this fuck-ass sentry bot. Chucking Psycho, Jet, and Medics was enough to kill the sentry bot, and I even scored a couple more fusion cores from killing it. However, the Assaultrons proved difficult. Killing the Assaultrons with a melee weapon is always going to be a bad time. They sometimes put up their arms to block whatever attack you're doing, which is really frustrating to me. I died a few times to these discount droids, but I eventually got them by leaving Ingram to deal with them. I ran out of mass fusion, and then went back to the Pridwin. I loaded the agitator into Amazon Prime, and then I fast traveled to the ruins of CIT, because I don't have the patience to follow him all the way over there. I sat there and waited for the big hunking robot to actually do what it was scripted to do, and then went into the Institute. I laid waste to all of the synths inside. That is, until I ran out of stimpaks. Then I led the synths to the other Brotherhood Knights and hid behind them. I went up towards Father's room and saw him on his deathbed. He told me about something whack. Diagnose that, motherfucker.
Lupus is a bad diagnosis.
I hacked his terminal and opened the door to the generator room. I ran past all the synths and turrets, put the charge on the generator, and then got to the relay room. I said that Sean could come with me this time, which is shocking. I usually tell him to fuck off. I mean, I need a slave to bring me beer, I guess. And then I left the Institute for the second and final time, and pressed the detonator, watching the Institute as it blew up. And that's it. That's a wrap. I just beat Fallout 4 as Dr. House. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and leave a like. Alternatively, if you hated it, go ahead and leave a dislike, and feel free to go down into the comments, tell me all the other ways I'm a total fuckhead. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's totally free, and you can always unsubscribe later. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks for watching Challenge Chronicles, and I'm out of here.